Hello, traders. I'm having a little trouble with my clip champ. This is attempt number 3 to get this thing recorded. I'm going to try to do it real fast. Let's look at NQ first. Here we go. Settlement right there. Opening candle here. We push down. We take out the 4-hour lows. Validate a breaker to the upside. If you're bullish, we're going to the all-time high. You get involved and we don't quite go to the all-time high. We validate a breaker to the downside right here. This is our fair value gap to the downside, all the way back to settlement. Then we push high or fail to make a new high. Higher, fail to make a new high. Another fair value gap back down to settlement. But we're just at settlement. Surely we can do better than that. So what can we do? Well, we had a breaker to the upside right here. Right there. It got violated. Almost. This candle body is not beneath it yet. We go back to settlement one more time. If you're in, you got smoked. Push down again with fair value gaps. Finally, we violate that breaker. We still have a bullish order block to contend with, but we start working it there. Once we got past the halfway point of this wick with candle bodies, I entered right there, and I made some money today. Woo-wee! Okay, so that invalidated bullish, and the fact that we did not make a new high here or here, and we went back to that breaker almost to the tick. That was my signal. Okay, this could do this. We really could go somewhere here, and then of course we'd be aiming for the next 4-hour low, right there. Okay, or gap fill. Yeah, gap fill is what I wanted. This scared me for a minute, but it did. I got back in and I made money for the gap fill. So that was cool. I got a whole bunch more lines on here and I want to explain them. So here another breaker that failed. If you weren't involved yet, you could get involved there. A little bit more ambiguous, but we did finally make it to gap fill, which there's the gap fill right here on that yellow line, which is a significant number 2, yellow line number 2. Okay, so that filled the gap, went back up, failed to make a new high. Now we're after 11. If the market hasn't reversed by 11, chances are we're in a directional day. And that's what we ended up being, was a directional day. Once again, breaker, we validated with a fair value gap right here above the breaker. I would have been filled if I was long. I would have been filled right there. Up. This is a 15-minute high. I'm not long. I didn't want to get long today for some reason. But I was thinking, this is validating. I should be looking for a long here. But I didn't. I wanted to see what happened when it took this 15-minute high, and it never took it. So I'm looking at bearish breaker here. Actually, it's here. Bearish breaker right here. Can we validate it? We did. We came back to the bullish breaker. We didn't make it all the way back up to the bearish breaker. Make it orange. And so I went short again to get that gap fill again. Actually, I was looking at ES and I knew it had a gap down here that needed to fill. Trump says something about China and software, and here we go. Boom. And then it comes back up and into this interesting little 3-4 yellow line business. We did eventually have an upside. That's our breaker. We started closing above it here. 2 fair value gaps. You could get involved there. I was done by the day. I actually got involved here when we took that because it was something going on ES that I thought, okay, yeah, we're going to go up now. But then we ended up tapping the bottom 3 times. That one made me mad. I locked my account. But I did have a winning day. I just gave back some of it in this little section right here. And my aim was right up here. It was above these two. That would have been an additional $1,000 to my day with freaking micros. And instead I gave back 500 and called it quits. So would have worked out, didn't work out. Now let's look at these lines. I watched an ICT video over the weekend. He told me to do two things. Put my 25% quadrants on this big wick. Said that's the range. That's a 20-day range right there. Put it on this wick. And then also, like on Friday or on Monday, I had it on this wick. And then I put it on this wick. So you use the most recent wick. But if we start aiming higher, then we would use this wick. And it actually performed well on that wick too. But so I marked this wick as we started pushing down. Now, I want you to see how price behaved. And also these green lines are that big candles wick, quadrants. He calls them quadrants. Look where we ended up trading back up to at the end of the day. Now, why are these boxes here? Well, any fair value gap that forms when it passes through a quadrant, so this would be that 25% pullback of that big daily candle on Friday, two Fridays ago. Any fair value gap that forms while pushing through a quadrant. So we have this one forming while pushing through a quadrant. This one, this one, this one. And I think that one is, yeah, that one's one too. So we have copious amounts of fair value gaps pushing through this quadrant. And so they all have some significance. The quadrant itself has significance. So I waited for this downside here to be validated, respected. And when this broke through this range, that's when I ended up going short again right here, just in time for Trump to say something. It also corresponded well with a gap fill on ES, which we'll talk about in just a minute. We filled gap fill on ES, and then we came back and look at what we did in that quadrant, that daily wick. This section right here, this daily wick. I'm not quite to the top there. I can see a little gap. I'll move it just a touch. There we go. And then that, so this wick, premium wick. Look what Nasdaq did in that thing. Not just once. This is the first time we pushed through it. Trump says, "Oh, China, blah 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 software." We push down, fill ES gap, and we come back into that premium wick. And look how those candle bodies are respecting. That's the 25%, 75%. Ping-ponging right back and forth in between them. We go down, touch the bottom, all the way back up to the top of that wick, fail to make a new high, fair value gap, enter for more downside. At least down to the bottom of the wick, right? Or 25%. I did a little scalp there. Okay, but then we ended up going a lot lower. We went all the way to this 4-hour low, and I did take that and add a little more to my measly profits. Okay, so we did not make it to the lower quadrant. I thought we might, but we didn't. Then we started this business. Okay, I was involved in a trade to the upside here. I got involved right here, and I got involved on it because of what the ES chart was doing and these lines on it. But we tapped the low, and then we came back down again. If you imagine these lines here, you can see what I'm about to show you. Let's go over here to ES. That same wick, corresponding wick on ES is these yellow lines right here. This candle pushed down, filled the gap. We went back up to the green quadrant, pushed down again. This is all ES's wick. This is the corresponding right here. This is all when ES was dancing in its wick. It's this time frame right here. And then we pushed down and we worked the ES wick on the daily chart. it was a little lower than NQ. See how it's a little lower right here? But we worked that sucker. 1 minute. Let's go back and see how we worked it. Filled the gap, came back down, went to the bottom of that wick. 25, almost to 50, back to the bottom, finally made it to 50, hung around a while, tried to push to the bottom, failed. That's our signal. Well, you got it. We need to go to 75. Maybe we go all the way to the high. We ended up going all the way back to that quadrant on the big daily candle and all those fair value gaps that we had marked out up here. Very interesting. He said this was a major part of the puzzle to his system. And I've been feeling like, because my reversal patterns are kick ass, but there's something I'm missing because some of them aren't working. I know the 4-hour levels are important, but we passed through these and then we didn't get a good one. It looked like we were going to have one. Did we go all the way to the moon? That's what I was expecting, but we didn't. And so when these fail, why are they failing? What's going on there? But this one actually held up pretty good, but it danced around a lot first. That is not a clean reversal signal. Now, with this piece of the puzzle, we got something we can work with. See, we validated this breaker. Actually, the breaker, I have it marked incorrectly. I marked it that one, and it's actually this one. And it was respected. I had it marked this one first, I think, and then when we pushed up, made a new low, I did not mark that one. But that one actually looks pretty good. But you can see how we're working in these quadrants. Down to the bottom, back to 50%. Almost made it to 75, back down, didn't make the new low. We got to go to the next level, the next quadrant level. And we hang out there for a long time, respecting 50% of it. Look at that. And then finally we break through and we go up to NQ's wick again. Push through it, almost to 75, back to 25, back to 75, back to 50, back to 75. Oh, we're going to go the high, low. Above it, back down to it. And finally we make it to that big green line. Is not that cool? That is pretty damn cool. And right now, this is price moving in Asia, and we're right here at this green line. Where might we go next? Where might we go next? I don't know. Anybody's guess. We could work all this stuff again. I'm going to wait for tomorrow. I'm not trading tonight, but I just had to show you all that. Hope everybody's doing well. Haven't been able to post here lately. I've had to have a lot of personal stuff going on, but I'm actually in San Antonio right now trying to make some Uber money because I'm broke. But one more day and I get a payout, so I'm pretty happy about that. We'll talk to y'all next time.